All right, everybody, welcome to another Born to Win podcast edition. I am your host, Vondale Singleton, founder of the Champs Mill Mentoring Program, and I'm super excited about the one and only Tinker Hatfield. That's right, the greatest of all time in shoe design, as many would say. But not only that, he's a great person, a great friend, a mentor to me, and I'm just really excited to share with you all the wonderful news that we're going to, talk about today. So without further ado, welcome Tinker Hatfield. Welcome to the Born to Win podcast. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing just wonderful, and it's great to be on your podcast. It's an honor, and I have to say that it's every time I speak with you, I see you as the GOAT.
Oh, man. Wow. I'm humbled by that, man. A few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to watch some young people do a cultural exchange from Chicago and London present on their deliverable, which was a jersey that they took the arts, the culture, the fashion around basketball and created this concept. And the first person that I thought of, I'm like, I got to invite Tinker Hatfield to join this presentation, because this is like the god of design. And you joined in and you heard these young people, present, and something that you said at the end was just really powerful. But can you just talk about that experience that you had a few weeks ago with our youth?
Yeah. Again, it was really exciting, and to be invited into the presentation. And of course, I've seen a lot of presentations. I've given certainly hundreds, if not more, presentations. And one of my comments was around the fact that these young people from both London and Chicago fought through what I would call a little bit of nervousness and delivered one of the best presentations I've seen in my entire career. And part of that was the tremendous amount of work that was put in, but it was the personality, the charisma, and the actual sophistication of the presentation, which then again showed up in the actual design work. And so it was really fun to see this process, to watch, what the kids went through and how they progressed. And then we were presented with a wonderful design or series of designs, and I was blown away, just blown away.
Hey, man. So again, thank you. The kids were honored to have you, and of course, H, also a legend. But I want to talk about mentorship just for a moment. Who are some of your mentors, or who were some of your mentors, or who are some of your mentors? Just kind of talk a little bit about mentorship for a moment.
Yeah, I have a trio of mentors during the course of my life. One was my own father, who was a reluctant mentor because he was so aggressively hard on me. But what he did, though, really set me up for success later on. And basically, he taught me how to work hard, just fight through whatever was thrown at you or me, and deliver the goods, just work hard. And I'd say that most of it was centered around sports. But whether it's an athletic contest or a design presentation, you just work hard. You work hard, and it sets you up for delivering the goods. So he was my first mentor. He was also very, very difficult, but that's the way life is. Life can be difficult, as you know, and all the kids, have experienced various things. So that's number one. Number two was Bill Bowerman, who, if you're a student of Nike and also sneakers and track and field in this case, Bill Bowerman is a very famous person, and he was my track coach. And so I went from my father to Bill Bowerman as as a mentor when I went to the University of Oregon. And he taught me something completely different, but he expected hard work. He expected everybody that was on scholarship to be already there. But he really was a mentor focused on smartness, being smart, understanding, the consequences of your work, of your performance, and also he was one that actually dialed us back, because he wanted us to be fresh on performance day. So sometimes people who teach you how to work hard maybe forget about the part where you need to be fresh, where you need to gather yourself and be prepared on that given moment when you are making a presentation, or if you're in a race or in a ball game. So that was Bill Barman was my second mentor. My third mentor is Phil Knight, and he's still around, and he taught me a third. So if you look at a stool, you need to have at least 3 legs for a stool. The third leg of that stool was the mentorship from Phil Knight, and he taught me about teamwork and passion and the emotion of the moment. And he's all about the ability to connect with people. So without that, the other 2 legs of the stool aren't that great, because you can work hard, you can work smart, but you need to care. You need to care, and you need to develop these relationships, and you need to be passionate. And that's what I learned from Phil Knight over all of these years. And I have had a 40-year plus relationship with him. And so now he's another one who was a reluctant mentor, but I just stuck with it. And now he actually admits that, I guess we're close.
And that's amazing.
That's the third leg of the stool.
That's amazing. I had the opportunity to read The Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, and just telling the story. And I remember just, blown away by his journey. Coach Bowerman, and in Oregon, and all of the just fascinating pieces that brought this wonderful company Nike that is celebrated across the world together. I'm a Chicago guy, and obviously in 1984, a kid from North Carolina came by the name of Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and was drafted to the Bulls. And it was incredible just to see how electrifying he was. And I think sometimes it's hard for me to even describe, to the younger generation, like just the power and the impact of Michael Jordan, even on violence. And back then we had some violence situations, but when the Bulls played, all the gang members put the guns down, the drugs down, and they were glued to the TV. And I remember the Chicago Tribune doing a report on how violence stopped in the city when the Bulls played. That's the impact that I remember Michael Jordan having. So for me to be able to see, the slam dunk contest and him jump from the free throw line, and everybody saw this shoot. Yeah, the Air Jordan 3, the Tinker 3s that, some people out on the street call them, right? Just talk about your relationship with MJ, and just like, what was it like working with Michael Jordan in his prime? Well, if I was to add another mentor, it would be Michael. Even though he's younger, there were things I learned from him that were pretty eye-opening and very important. And I would stay at his house. We'd talk about design, we'd talk about the product, we'd talk about life in general, and then of course he'd drive to the game, to his to the arena, and I just felt like I was in the presence of greatness, but also I was a close friend. And he would always drive through
well, in those days, Cabrini Green was still around,
Yep.
and he would head not straight to the arena. He knew that he had a little extra time, and he would drive basically into the projects in that part of town and stop and talk to kids. Through his car window, he'd roll his window down, and kids were waiting. They knew, because he did it virtually every home game, regardless of the weather or regardless of the gravity of the game. I was with him during a playoff game with the Utah Jazz toward the end of his career, and he still stopped and talked to these kids.
Wow.
And he, gave them advice, sometimes tickets, sometimes sneakers, maybe all three. And I've never known an athlete, certainly at that level, to compartmentalize and be able to set aside what he needed to do to play the game. But he set aside this time and this focus on kids. And that was a big lesson about being able to turn a switch on and off. So a lot of people have to, when they compete, they have to be very aggressive, and certainly Michael Jordan was one of those people. I'd say almost ruthless on the floor. I think he was ruthless on the floor, but he could turn
just
that
a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, everybody can tell you that the dude was a terror out there, and for good reason. And that's why there's 6 rings on his fingers. And so, but he didn't turn that switch on until the game. He was able to care about other people, talk to folks. Everybody in Chicago loved him, and from everybody, these kids to the parking attendants, to his personal, group of protectors. He would employ off-duty Chicago detectives and policemen to help, basically keep him safe. But they loved him, and at every turn as he was progressing through to the locker room, there was love. There was love everywhere. People loved him, and he returned it with grace and his own kind of charisma. And I think that, yeah, he won games. He was a champion, but he was also a part of the community, a big part of the community. And I think that went just as far as the winning of the game. So pretty cool.
Man, that's amazing. And I think was a younger kid when you were designing, like, I can't remember what shoe it was, where you were talking about all the aspects of his life. And that was one of the aspects, him meeting with the kids.
Yeah. Well, I think it's somewhat reasonably well documented, but I was there. I was in the seat next to him, or I was in the back seat and Howard White was in the seat next to him. It just depended on the game. And so I saw it, firsthand, in person, and it really taught me humility, and it taught me really the importance of you don't need to be an assassin or be a competitor, a vicious competitor like he was, except on the court. And he knew that. And so there was this really interesting switch. And so when he got on the court, he would basically do whatever it took to win. But before that particular, part of his life, he was amazing. He was a great person, and still is. So everybody should learn from that story, that there are different circumstances where we need to step up and become a competitor, and to be aggressive, and to get to where you need to get. But there are other times where you need to dial it back and be just helpful, and be caring, and to be just a good person, period. So that's what I learned.
Yeah, and you know, when you're talking about being helpful and caring as a person, that's how I describe you to people. And I'll never forget having 15 Champs members at the headquarters in your office, and they was like, "Hey, you got about 45 minutes to present about Champs." And I'm like, man, I'm gonna be in Tinker Hatfield's office, but at the same time, I felt like there was an opportunity for us to share with you all, you know, what we live through, our young people live through every single day here in Chicago. And I just remember looking over and seeing you crying in the middle of the presentation, and then you got up out of your seat and you joined the table where we were sitting. And I think it changed the room, the temperature of the environment at that moment. Then in the end, you began to speak. Do you remember that moment? Can you talk to us about what happened in that moment? And I think that was our connection too.
Yeah, well, you know, there are presentations, and then there are presentations. And the young men that got up and told their stories in that room were amazing, but also their stories were heartbreaking at times. Yet there was in some of the stories there was this metamorphosis and this you know, I would call ascendance to better work in school, going to college. And then there were some kids that presented that were younger, and they hadn't really gotten there yet. And yet their stories were heartbreaking, and I think that it touched me in different ways, and it made me want to not just listen, but to join in and be involved. And so I've been involved ever since, in one way or another. So yeah, it was,
you know, and that's powerful. And more specifically, you know, I think the actionable items of, you know, you listening and saying, you know what, I can be a part of the presentation and listen and go through the motions and say, yeah, you know, we gave them the time that they need. But you took it a step further. During All-Star Weekend in Chicago, right before the pandemic, you actually came to Chicago and joined us and took part of a celebration, you know, with us during All-Star Weekend. And I think that meant the world to our community here in Chicago and to the youth of Chicago, to have somebody of your stature choose to be a part of, you know, this dynamic organization and Champs. And more specifically, you decided to take on a couple special projects to donate your donation, your creation or design fee into the Champs program. Can you talk about the project and talk about what moved you to want to give back to our program?
Well, you know, I'm not there every day like you, so it's not like I can give back on a regular basis. But you know, on certain occasions, I can be there and be supportive. But really, what you need and what I can provide is resources, and it basically, you know, you can't operate without those kinds of resources. So you know, I just felt like, well, I am fortunate, you know, resource-wise, to be able to share my good fortune, and you know, and so that, you know, became part of my contribution to your organization, was not just being there, but also backing it up with resources, and that, to me, I think is that taking that's the next step after just being there, is to, you know, reach in to your own abilities, and I guess you could say I can afford, or even if I couldn't afford, I still would have probably done something. So, yeah.
I said, I don't want to be paid, but I would really, really love it if you would take the money that you were going to give to me, and we would pass it on to the Champs organization.
This is something that Tinker took away from his Nike duties to design, which one I think is really dope. But what else is really dope about this is that Tinker actually is not taking any money for making this design. Instead,
there you go. I mean, and more recently I've been designing projects for the NBA. Actually, Michelob Ultra, which is kind of a sports drink almost. I wouldn't, although I don't know that your audience should be running around with Michelob Ultra, but they really do a great job supporting the NBA. And the NBA, of course, then influences a lot of young people. And so it's been really fun to design projects for them. They pay me, but that goes really past me straight to Champs, and I think that's an easy part of what I should be doing. The more difficult part is really being there, but also again, the resources are extremely important, as you pointed out on a few occasions. So, yeah. And I don't know,
Yeah.
I remember Tim Hardaway was there that particular day, and I've known him a little bit for over the years, and he's worked with Spike Lee and some commercials for us. And I was the designer of the product that was being advertised by Spike Lee and Tim Hardaway. And so I have a little bit of connection to Chicago that way through Tim Hardaway, and also through Scoop Jackson, the ESPN writer who lives in South Chicago and has a real world experience growing up in Chicago. And I'm good friends with him, and I've been to his home for dinner, and it's just been my connection is strong to Chicago, and that it's because of those relationships,
which are really powerful. And shout out to the great Tim Hardaway, who just became an NBA Hall of Famer. And I was just with him last week. He came back to the community at the park where he played ball here on the South Side, and we were able to give him his award from before the pandemic. And we're excited to be celebrating, his status now as a Hall of Famer. Growing up here on the South Side of Chicago playing basketball, and also Scoop Jackson, the great Scoop Jackson. Shout out to him. And both of those individuals that you mentioned have given their time, have come into Champs to speak to our young men over the years. And we're forever grateful, of whatever resources that come our way, because you're right, the work that we do on a daily, I don't think people really understand the gravity, but it's the greatest fulfilling work that I've been a part of. And I'm really, really proud to have people like Tinker that decides to give back in the ways that he does, because it helps us stay afloat. It actually does. The programming that we provide 6 days out of 7 days a week, it's a lot of moving pieces with that. But I do wanted to ask a question that I ask all of our guests on the Born to Win podcast, and it's simply this: if you can have a billboard with any words on this particular billboard, what words would you have, and if you can share with us why?
I would just put some words up there. I think words are powerful, and I would start off with hope, curiosity, and work to get where you want to go. Those would be like three things I would put on the billboard. Very simple, not preachy. It's just important words that I'm sure you use on a daily basis, but I would just put those up there, and in bold, just black and white, and because I remember Scoop mentioned to me once that crime or gang activity isn't really isn't really fostered through negativity. It's hopelessness, and people choose. If people are committing crimes, it's out of hopelessness. They don't see any other future for themselves. And I think was a really powerful thing that he said to me. And I think that you do a great job of explaining that to young people, and it gives them hope, and hope then drives those other two things, the hard work. And I don't know, it's just I don't like to be preachy, so I just there's some words that just mean something to me, and I think that means they probably mean something to others as well.
And those are all powerful universal words, right? That we all as human beings want to aspire to have hope and curiosity and working hard. One last question before we get out of here that I wanted to ask is, like, after all of your accomplishments, and there's just too many to name in the moment in terms of what you've provided as an art expression to the world in the form of shoes, and even before that as an architect and designing trade shows and various things with Nike. But what do you want, or what do you believe your legacy will be when it's over with for you?
Yeah, that's a good, I've been asked that question before, and it's not an easy one to answer, because on different days I might have different answers. Yeah. But the reality is that I would far prefer, and I certainly hope, there's that word again, hope to be remembered for being a good human being and caring about others. And in my particular case, I focus on diversity and diversity at Nike, diversity at the University of Oregon, diversity wherever Nike does business, and so to me that's I would like to be remembered for fostering those things, and to me that supersedes the design work. I really think it does.
Well, thank you so much, Tinker. Any last words you want to share with our viewing audience?
Yes, I just want to simply say that you are the coolest dude I know. You are, and you've dedicated your life. You've dedicated your life to helping young people, especially young boys, see the future and see it as a positive future, and not a negative one. And I think that is one of the highest callings that anybody could ever take on or endeavor to be good at. And so it's always I love being able to call you a friend, and not only a friend to you, but also a friend of the program. And so thank you, because you and your team of mentors and people that make the whole organization run are doing something that really makes a difference. It really, really, really does. So thank you.
Man, that's so humbling. Thank you so much for your time, Tinker. And I want everybody to make sure that you're supporting the great work of Champs through mentorship, social emotional learning, leadership development, and identity formation. And if you need a mentor, if you need some mental help, please reach out to our program. We are open and available to help anybody. We don't turn anybody away. And remember, one of our core values is unconditional love. And we truly mean that and believe in that. So thanks again for everybody tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this important podcast. Peace.
Peace out.